afterwards just for some giggles.
Yeah, that's what I do.
I heard about that. I heard that was your
Yeah.
side hustle.
Yeah, no. No, people would leave.
I'd stay.
Okay, well, hey, listen.
I'd be there. I'd do it.
I gotta close
So
up all stuff so it doesn't bug us.
are you all lined up, or?
I am good to go. I am good to go.
It's been one of those things of where there's a couple of technical things, so we end up a couple minutes late starting the show, which is, hey, it's okay. These things happen. It's a good way of letting people know that we're really live,
That's
which is
live.
great. The last couple of weeks the last two episodes we were pre-recorded. The show always launches live, but they were pre-recorded episodes. We had Mike Stein, um, and he's overseas, and Lush had some alternative hours that we had to gear ourselves around. But here we are this week, 110% live, which is dope. And our adventurer this night comes to us with influences from jam bands, soul funk, and hip hop, and being involved on the dance floor to becoming one of the best funky jam breakbeat DJs and promoters in Toronto and beyond. With hundreds of events over nearly 2 decades and still happening in real life prior to shutdown, with the dopeness ongoing online. Being a promoter of these vibes isn't just about events. It's about much more. And we're going to get into it with Farbsie Funk here in the utility room. Welcome to the show.
Thank you kindly. Appreciate you
Yeah,
having me.
I think it was essential. Going through your bio before and getting ready for the show tonight, I saw that you had demonic in the bio as a form of fuel, a propellant to what it was that you wanted to do. And
Absolutely. I
yeah,
mean, he was
and it's I think that's cosmic because I made the bad mistake of going through a list of stuff that was going on in Toronto breakbeat related when I had Dan on. I believe it was on the first episode. We've had Dan twice, and there will be return of the Dan in July. Um, and he brought up Make It Funky, and it's one of those moments of where, because I've got everything firing at me, rapid fire. It's coming at me, moving, and I was like, oh, fuck, right. And I'm like, yeah, I gotta get Farbsie on the show. We gotta talk about the story. And I have a bit of inside with Dan. So when I'm asking the questions of some stuff when I'm talking to Demonic, it's like I have an idea of where it's gonna go. But with tonight, I don't. I'm absolutely in the dark, and I want to get illuminated
awesome.
on the history of stuff. So I want to kick in right
There
away
are so
because
many, oh, for sure. I mean, it's been, I would say, 17 years of Make It Funky now, which is just baffles my mind. But beyond that, I was into breaks since '96, I guess it was. Because I got into breaks in London. Actually, I was out in London for school, and Big League Chew was there. Pete Eames from the Small Town DJs was DJ M&M's at that time. And I mean, they had an incredible scene in London because it was right between Toronto and Detroit. So you've got basically Detroit on the I don't know, whatever it was. I think it was like Wednesdays in Detroit, Thursdays in London, and then Fridays in Toronto, or Saturdays, or it shifted one day. Either way, we ended up getting some incredible talent in London. And in 1996, I was completely out of the scene. I had no idea what was going on in the scene. But I mean, I had friends who had little sisters who went to raves and whatnot, but we didn't really know what it was. I was a jam band kid. I was a blues kid. I loved hip hop. I loved funk a little bit at the time. And essentially, some guy came and knocked on my door, a friend of mine from university, and said, "Hey, get on the bus." And I was like, "Get on the bus? All right, it's 2
was it
a.m."
like a physical thing? He was like, you were
Like
actually okay. All right.
physical bus. Yeah.
I wasn't quite sure if this was like it was metaphor.
No. Jamie C. On Facebook and whatnot knocked on my door, said, "Farbs, I know it's 2 a.m. Get your party clothes, get on the bus, we're going." And a bus pulled up. I lived in Saugeen, which was like 1,219-year-olds who moved away from home for the first time. and it was basically a party town, right? In that residence at University at Western, and basically Jamie just put me on the bus and started the journey.
At 2 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, it was literally the shuttle's here. You're going to be on it. We're going to a party, and you're going to love it. And
where did the bus take you guys?
It took us to the Caribbean Club. I don't know if you've ever heard of it in London, but basically, it's just way out in the warehouse district, middle of nowhere. Upstairs, you had Ann Savage, Matt C. Downstairs was Big League Chew. Who was there? It was Marcus Visionary. It was Capital J, Everfresh, and it was just one of the that was the party that sent it off for me. It was called the Funk System, and I never looked back. I mean, from there, the 1 year later, I threw my first event, and that was in London. It was a Tuesday night. It was like we had 15 acts in 3 rooms at the Knack.
A Tuesday night.
It was a Tuesday night, yeah, because we were nobodies. We couldn't get it. We couldn't get it Friday or Saturday, and University Town, so it's always packed, right? So
okay,
the bars were like, "Hey, listen, we'll give you a Tuesday night. Go for it." You know, we brought 150. We had some fun, but I mean, London was an incredible experience because we got to see everybody who was coming to Toronto, because it was the closest city to Toronto that was really throwing big parties. I mean, we saw Claude. We saw, I think, I'm pretty sure Plastic Man one time. I mean, it was for 4.5 years I spent in London learning about the rave scene, understanding kind of what the parties were. I mean, I was full on party mode at that point. Which 2001, I came back to Toronto, or 2001. I grew up in Toronto. I think you went to my high school. I mean, we we were Thornhill kids. Did I? You went to Thornlea, right?
I did for a bit, yeah. Yeah, a lot. Yeah. It felt like a lot of. That's wild because it's good to learn this. I'm going to break in your story for a sec. I'm not quite sure, and I might say it wrong, so maybe you know.
No, do it.
But Thornlea had like a lot of music that came out of it. I can't remember. There's other. It wasn't just you and I that came out of Thornlea. I think I'm not going to say it right. A rock band and there was a hip hop act, and I can't remember what the rock band was. What was it?
Moxie Fruvis.
Moxie Fruvis came from Thornlea. Okay, and then there was something else, right?
It was Head. I think one of the guys from Head came from Thornlea.
Really?
Okay. There were a few really good acts that came out of Thornlea. Yeah. But again, when I was at Thornlea, I was more of a jam band kid. I was loving the Grateful Dead. I was loving.
I was about to say, yeah. Grateful Dead and Fish seemed to be the soundtrack of Thornlea, and there was an associative dress code that was with it as well. It seemed to be a flannel PJ pants and then a sweatshirt from an Ontario-centric university. Yeah, like this was, I know, and like a ponytail, and it didn't matter, what was wearing it was someone who was wearing the ponytail, and that was, and it seemed like this was like the clothing uniform, the armor, the hallway armor.
Absolutely, and
I'm the guy that was going through the parking lot.
Some of the teachers there. But I mean, there was teachers who used to give us beer to come and help them move stuff at their houses, or provide other things that the chemistry teacher used to make acid in the lab.
What? What?
I'm not even kidding. We had the most ridiculous high school.
So my high school experience was unlike yours. That's all. I was the guy. I was going through the parking lot that had like, techno and trance, raging out of the car window of my mom's ride, and the whole smoking area would freeze and be like, oh, there's a raver guy, And so I had like no friends in high school, but I saw them all on my dance floor years later, which was wild. But
yeah, that says it all. We had a smoking area, right?
Like, we did have a smoking area at Thornlea. It was right across, like not really across the street. It was across the parking lot. Yeah. It was still school property, I guess.
Yeah, totally was school property.
Which is
I
wild to think about as well, because was there an age restriction on cigarettes back then?
mean, there totally was, and nobody cared.
Back in the day, huh?
Is
Yeah,
that crazy? So,
right.
anyways,
I say
um,
sometimes that the more things change, the more they stay the same. But in this instance, fuck no.
no, that was just strange. um, yeah. So, I mean, yeah, high school was another animal. I saw over 500 live concerts before I was 19.
I
I was.
graduated.
What's that?
I graduated.
Yeah. Okay.
I
Me too.
graduated.
But I'm saying I saw over 500 concerts before I turned 19 years old. I was seeing 3 to 5 shows a week at one point. I was traveling to see shows. Whatever I could do to get in front of live acts, I was doing it at that time.
What was it that you
Um,
think that you were chasing?
oh gosh, uh, I don't know. I don't know. That's a great question. Um, to be honest, I think it was just fun. I always loved music. I inherited my father's record collection when I was like 12 years old. He taught me how to use a record player. I, for years, just played albums at home, and he gave me at least probably 2,000 records. So immediately I was already immersed in vinyl. It was just a different kind of vinyl. And it really opened up the live scene to me because that live experience, I mean, there's so many things that can happen in a live show that it just, guests coming in, playing cover songs of other acts, seeing, I mean, seeing the same band in different places, never once playing the same way.
Let me ask you something. What is it that the live experience means to you?
Oh, everything. It's an interaction of the audience. I mean, one of the reasons I love the Grateful Dead and the Fish so much is that there were so many songs that the audience had an active part in the song. So if the audience wasn't there, the song wasn't the same.
Did you find that the audience participation was the half of that puzzle?
Yeah, a huge driver of it.
So I've been to one Fish show.
Okay.
I've never seen the Dead live. The Fish show that I went to was when they came to Toronto, and I can't remember where, but I believe it was at the Molson Amphitheater outside the
Yeah,
Ontario
I was
Playgrounds.
there.
What's that?
I was there. I guarantee it.
You were there. Okay. So I was there too. I went because I had a family member who was very much into Fish, did a bit of touring with, not the band, but I guess with the caravan that tours with Fish, and found out that they're coming to Toronto. Knew that I was going to be there. I was like, you got to come with me to the show. I don't know anybody in Toronto. You got to come. I'm sure you're going to love it. And I
What'd you
thought to
think?
myself, it was very much like being at a rave, but with
Yeah.
obviously very different music.
You
And
know who like that is DJ Check, actually, because he used to be a big purveyor of Dead shows.
really,
And he's a Deadhead
check?
to the core. And
No.
yeah. And he
Okay.
used to like, we're good friends, and he used to tell me that the Dead shows were the first raves.
I
And
want to say that it's. I mean, I don't. Maybe the first raves that he went to. I'm going to say sure it's there.
there's people that argue that the Jamaican um, dance hall scene was really the first raves.
I'm gonna put my own 2 cents in. If you
Yeah,
can find classic footage of the Doors or Pink Floyd, the Doors early concerts. I mean, the
I'm pretty
band.
sure Dead
Come
predate.
time their second or third tour, they had that. I can't. There's an insurance story that's associated because the venues were just turned upside down. And Morrison couldn't be insured. He kept jumping off the stage into the crowd and dancing with everyone in the crowd. And I want to say almost that they parodied this in the film. I mean, I kind of like the movie actually.
I think the Dead actually predate the Doors because the Dead were doing the acid tests with
No, the Doors are before the Dead. Is this true that the Grateful Dead predate?
1995. No, the Doors were the
I'm not
Doors.
jumping on Google at the
Acid,
same time because I don't want the screen
yeah,
lighting up and fucking up the imagery.
acid
And
was really prevalent when the Doors came to be. That's how they got their name. The Doors of
because
Percent.
the Doors would have. I mean I can't remember, and I don't want to say that I know for certain what it is, but
No,
they
no,
had a tapestry hanging behind the stage, and what they would do is they would project onto the tapestry a lava lamp like
Yep.
melted transforming image, and this was very towards people who were having a moment with the show in an
So
extended fashion.
if you picture Timothy Leary and like Hunter S. Thompson and Bear back in 1964, 1965, creating acid. And then what they did was they created what was called the acid tests, where they invited 200 or 300 people in the Bay Area to come to these like parties where they just give everybody acid. And then the Dead were the band that were hired to play.
Right.
So that's
Hey,
kind of
listen,
how.
I don't know about it. I'm learning with you right now.
Yeah,
I'm not
yeah.
quite sure the full history of the Grateful Dead. Like I'm
I
not.
wouldn't be surprised if the Doors showed up at those parties, and that's how they kind of got because
Wow.
the Doors came from the Doors of Perception, which was about the acid trip.
Right. Right. Okay.
With the Dead being there at the creation of LSD, um, I would think that they predate it, but you might be right too. I don't know. I don't know.
I'm not quite sure. It's interesting to hear about what you're telling me right now. Also, I brought up Pink Floyd. Pink Floyd as well had an emphasis right from their early days of performing live. There was an emphasis on a visual that was
Mhm.
associative with the show, and they kept escalating what that visual was until I don't know if it peaked with the Wall, but it certainly that was a moment
Yeah,
where
if you get a chance, look up the acid trips.
I will.
It's
I
all
will.
about Ken Kesey, the Merry Pranksters, um, Timothy Leary, Hunter S. Thompson, all those guys literally gathered in the um, and kind of created. But I think what I was trying to really get at is more than that. Um, is that the actual rave part of it is more about the synergy of the crowd with what's going on stage. And with the Dead, it was, I think throughout the Dead's career, it was always about the fact, it was never really, how do I say this? The music was important, but it wasn't the reason that 60% of the people went to the Dead shows.
Community.
They, they went for the community.
So this is great that
Literally
you're
people
bringing
who
this up
lived.
right now. I'm very curious. I noticed that. So how about this? Tell me about the Hipster AV days.
Haha. So Hipster AV was literally that first party that I threw in London in 1997. It wasn't just me. There was literally 25 of us, and we
This
all
was
kind of,
a collective. You refer to this as a collective. So was this
yeah.
pre-internet? Was this during the start of
This
the internet?
was 1997, so like
So
the
there's
internet.
some internet.
Yeah, there's. I think the internet existed, but
It
it's
existed. It
like
was it was. I'm gonna send you a message and I'll check tomorrow if you got
you got it, you got it. I mean,
it. I'm downloading a song. I should have it for Friday. The download began on
I,
Monday.
did
Um,
Tribe exist at that time?
pardon me.
Did Tribe exist at that time?
Tribe was, I believe, around. I mean, I'm exaggerating. There
Yeah.
was internet and stuff was going on. I mean, I want to get to that. I mean, I know that because you were super active on the message boards, but it's jumping ahead a little bit. I wanted to.
Nope.
Um, how is it? How did someone start a collective
You know what? Honestly, it was our friends just getting together and kind of saying, okay, what music
in
do we?
real life?
Yeah,
You guys
yeah.
were getting together at someone's house, like it was 25
No,
guys in someone's
we were going
basement
to
with
other
a crowd
people's
around a
events all
turntable,
the
or
time. We were going to other people's events all the time, and we were just like, you know what? We want to see what we want to see. So why don't we throw our own event?
okay,
And kind of that's how it came about. And we had a lot of talented friends. We had friends who played guitar, friends who played in bands. We had DJs that were friends. We had, like there was a whole community. There was artists that were painting at that event. There was like all sorts of different things. There was 25 of us, so there's lots of minds coming together to build all the different elements of the event. And then, like I said, we got about 150 people. We made enough to buy everybody that was part of the group a T-shirt. Uh, you know, we weren't getting rich off it. We knew that. It was a Tuesday night. We were hoping for break even.
Right.
But it was just the point of being able to say, you know what, we threw our own event. We had a good time, and we showed some people what we love.
Right. What about the message boards? Why were the message boards important to you?
Communication. How do you get the message out to like-minded people? And the message boards were a place for people to gather, get intel, understand what's going on in their direct areas, and be able to connect with other people. Like, I met so many friends through Tribe.
Was there ever a moment of where you were trying to connect or communicate that you were doubtful of who you were talking to? This is a moment of where there was a lot of alias pseudonyms, people not saying who they were, using some name, a code, a superhero.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I had a couple Tribe aliases.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, there was one for
Why?
things I wanted to say that I didn't want people to know was me, and there was one for, my everyday. It was Hipster AV at the time. Um, that was my main one.
Do you think that helps, looking back on that action right now? Would it have been more important to just be you so people could identify with the comments, whether agreeable or disagreeable, or did it make sense to just be anonymous and
Um,
say whatever it was, hoping? I mean, the whole reason for being anonymous is so that you could have this this internet Kevlar, no?
sure, but I think most people knew who I was, so I didn't really have that luxury, right? That's kind of why I had to create a secondary.
How did you leak it in one party moment
No,
where you're like, I'm hipster
when,
ass?
especially when I was going to okay, so let's say this. When I was going to events, maybe not. I didn't. I had the anonymies. And you know what I'm
It's
trying to
okay.
say.
I'm picking up what you're laying
Can't get the
down.
word
Yeah.
out. Anonymous. I was anonymous at that point. And, um, but basically, I mean, once I started throwing events, everyone knew who I was. So it took the shield away because I was the one posting the events. I was the one, responding to comments about the events. I was the one building the guest lists. I was the one, I don't know, doing whatever needed to be done to make sure that these events were going to go off. Posting reviews, posting photos from the events. Um, I mean, enticing other people to get vocal about the events. I think that was, I mean, and the way we strategized from the start of Make It Funky to the end, or to where we are now, changed 100 times as the community evolved, the scene evolved. I mean, from 2001 to 2005, I was actively going to all sorts of breaks events every weekend. I mean, Dan was the purveyor of them. He was the guy. I mean, there was a couple other guys that were doing it, electrician. Um, and I was also going to I was going to the bigger parties like the Sneak Arena, um, Carter type parties. I was hitting all everything that I could basically in those, gearing up, learning about how do these raves function, what's happening, and by that time they had already moved from kind of an underground scene into the clubs, right? But it was our intent to kind of recreate the rave vibe, but recreate it in a way that we could experience the same community in a club that you would have in an illegal party or an illegal rave. And that was our real goal in the very beginning.
Do you think that rolling up to a venue that is legitimate, not a warehouse, not a one-off style venue, something that is it reoccurs, regardless of your party and what you're trying to do, that the venue has 3, 4 parties over the course of the week or more, and it's gonna again the week after, etc., etc. This type of thing, showing up as a partier to this venue, is this
Yep.
is this is this cool?
You know what? I'll tell you something. Let me tell you about the first party, because I think that kind of gives some insight. So I actually the first party was put on by myself, Larry Borens, and Tim Dixon, and the three of us were friends. Larry had been working with the Promise guys. He brought Bass Nectar. They set up a club where they put trees inside the club. And they created like a forest inside.
They brought legitimate trees or like plastic trees, like.
These were real trees. They brought them in. They filled the club. There was probably about 50 trees through the dance floor.
Okay.
And they weren't huge, but they were potted plants. But it just made for a cool. Anyways, I met Larry at that party actually, and it turned out our grandparents were friends. Like we just had a great history. But anyways, point is, we decided, you know what, let's throw a party. And so, caveat to that is the dance story that I mentioned to you. So what was happening in the break scene from about 2002 to 2005 is the sounds started becoming a lot harder and a lot darker. So I was always into the funky side of things, the light things. It was all about smiles on the dance floor. I want to be happy when I'm going out. And I don't know. We were seeing the Aqua Skies come to Toronto. I don't know if you know who that is, but
yeah, I know.
Very
sure I do.
Much harder sounds,
right.
Tear out sounds.
Uberzone.
Yeah, Uberzone. I actually like Uberzone a lot, so I can't really complain because they
Come
have
on,
a live.
you see, but not Aqua Skies.
But yeah,
I'm making fun.
It's okay. It's okay. But anyways, point to the story is that the sounds were getting darker and harder. Meanwhile, there's this whole other scene that I knew existed out there that wasn't coming to Toronto, wasn't exposed here. And Toronto had such a history of love of funky breaks. I mean, you had Big League Chew, you had Marty McFly, you had the Electrician, you had the Fat Conductor, you had oh my gosh, I mean there was tons. Kid Funky J, you had Funkin' Style, you had Dan Demonic, played funky breaks back in the day, and you had like a wealth of talent. Red Turtle. There was so many in Toronto that were doing great things and playing that funky tip, but they weren't the producers who were making the records, and they weren't. It wasn't like going to the club and you could see the guys that are making this music. It was all DJs, and Toronto had fantastic DJs. We were a city of DJs. And I think that was a testament to the record stores we had, because we had excellent buyers at our record stores who were pushing the sounds. I mean, I remember walking into Eastern Bloc one time, and I was coming in for breaks. Rob always had an amazing bag. Rob G is another I didn't mention. Rob always had a bag waiting for me of records that he thought I was going to buy, and I would say 9 out of 10 he was bang on. I remember walking in one time, and you came up to me and you said, Farbs, you got to try this record. And you handed me Africa Bombata. It began in Africa.
And that's actually Chemical Brothers.
Oh, is it?
100%.
Fair enough. Well, I still have it. And
great track. When that came out, it was a bona fide smash.
Yeah, you handed it to me. You said, Farbs, you got to check this out. And I bought it on the spot. But that's what I'm saying. We had great influencers in this city who helped the community build, and the record stores were the place that everyone would go to create that community. I think there was a huge loss when the record stores started closing, when the shift came. Right.
This is amazing. I'm loving exactly how you phrased it. It's something that I haven't considered. I do think about the puzzle. I know there's some people who would say it's because of this, and I'd reply, well, that's a reason. I can't think it's the reason. There's been so many incredible players, and I'm not just talking about music people in the industry. For example, going back to it feels like he's the number one hero, and boy, I can't wait till I can debate with him again next month. But Demonic, behind the scenes,
absolutely
fucking powerhouse.
Absolutely. He was bringing in the vinyl. He was working with the distributors. He was working with
That's just it. The amount of innovation that Demonic did for the city of Toronto, like that, and so okay, so he didn't do 10,000 people events.
no.
Okay, and so does that mean that the actions weren't? I mean, like, are you kidding? Because of Demonic, 10,000 people maybe did go to events. How about that? You know what I mean?
I
So
doubt it. I wouldn't doubt it for a second.
yeah,
He
I mean,
to me in the beginning. I mean, I was watching because he was there. I was watching because he was putting together these lineups of people who I knew were going to play the music I love.
yeah.
I have to be honest. Big League Chew was the biggest influence on me from day one.
I mean, one of those meteoric superstar rises in Toronto in the mid 90s up to the 2000s. It felt like a lineup wouldn't be complete unless he was on it.
I
And
agree.
if you were strong enough to stick around to watch some sunlight crack through whatever windows might be in the venues, you want that to happen. You want Colin
His
to step
story
up to the mixer,
in
because
1998, where Donald Glaude was the headliner at the NAC. Okay, and we walked into the NAC, and I don't know if you know the club, but basically it's about I would say it holds about 500 people total.
I've played it.
Two rooms, small, one larger room and one tiny room in the back.
Yeah.
So we walked in, there was 4 people on the dance floor watching Donald Glaude. And then we were like, where the heck is everybody? And we walked into the back room, and I kid you not, there was 200 people crammed into that little tiny room watching Big League Chew. People were
Right.
standing on tables, standing on chairs, dancing. It was just there was a magical vibe that he brought to the game.
I'm agreeing with you. Yeah, it's a super special moments from that DJ.
Yeah.
What would you say were some of the challenges with going from live bands to DJs on the stage at your parties?
So that's another thing,
Am
because
I getting it tonight or what, Farbs?
no, you're pushing the envelope, because basically what happened was, when we so I was telling you about that first party. Let me go back there for a second. I'll come back to this because this is important in the chronological order. But basically,
Utility Room's like a Chris Nolan movie. You can't come here for chronology.
no, I get it.
At least not ordered chronology.
When we did that first party, and this is actually the flyer. When we did that very first party, we said, what can we do that's different? How can we bring that element of a rave into the club? We pretty much hired all the breaks DJs in the city to play, and we brought in Fort Knox 5, who were the headliner for the night. I mean, here, just looking at the flyer, we had Big League Chew, Rob G, Dave Dubb, Fat Conductor, Leisure Sweet Larry, myself, and DJ Taro played.
Leisure Sweet Larry?
Yeah, that was Larry, my partner. I don't even know if we actually played that night. I think we were just on the flyer. But
Why do I don't know why. It's just, of all the faces and names I could think of, that one's that's not that was I don't
no,
I know the game.
he was a background player. He didn't want to be in front of the.
Ironically in the game as well.
But the point was that what we decided was, let's do a costume ball. And so for that first party, we rammed the 360. We could not get another person in there. And every single person loved the idea. This was 2005. Every single person loved the idea of wearing a costume at the party. And there was some crazy costume. I mean, I would say there had to have been 200 clowns. But I'm not even kidding. But everybody, like, I've only ever seen one picture from that party, and it's just magic. It's like just every arm is in the air. The people were just having a blast. But the point is, I mean, we had okay, the biggest dude I've ever seen walks up. I'm sitting at the counter where we're taking the money at the door, and the biggest dude I've ever seen comes up. He's got to be like, I don't know, 320 pounds, all muscle. And he walks up and he's like, how much is it to come into your rave party? He sounded like Mike Tyson. We just laughed. We were like, come in. for you, you're in. It was just like, there was vibes. There was a community there, and we could see. And I remember going to bars at that time because it was still flyer days, right? Like that was peak flyer time. To If you want to find out about a party, you get a flyer. And I was out on the streets till 4 a.m, 5 a.m, 7 a.m, every weekend, going to places and talking to people and saying, hey, this is going to be a really cool event. This is something you should check out. Here's why. Giving them links, giving them insights, giving them, maybe not links at that time, but we handed out CDs. We did so many things to push the music and kind of get people interested. And people walked away from that saying, wow, that was different. And they enjoyed it. That was the first party. At the same time, we also had this thing going on called Mixed Bag. And Mixed Bag was a weekly Friday event at College Street Bar with myself, Mikey D, Big League Chew, Dave Sadler, DJ Zerka. There was more. Red Turtle, Task. There was so many. Anyways, but basically that went for 3 years. I mean, to do it every Friday night for 3 years, that was pretty crazy. It was, and it wasn't like a huge bar, but what would happen is they do the dinner, and we'd play down tempo, mid tempo in the dinner, and then we just raise the roof.
Did
and
people
after
stay?
dinner, they clear all
Were
the
people
tables.
sitting down and dining, and then they'd let the table clear, and then bring out the drinks, and then get the fucking table out of here?
They clear the tables.
So like people would be like making a full night out of it. They'd come, they'd eat, and then shake off the turkey on the floor.
You got it. You got it.
It's wild.
We did that for 3 years. It was.
I didn't know about this.
Yeah. And we always had, basically, I mean, really it was me, Sadler, Zerka, Mikey D, and then we'd have a special guest every week.
You got. Did you touch on it? Maybe I missed it. I don't think I missed it, but I asked you what the challenges were from going from, because there was on stage. It seems like when you were talking about when you were throwing parties, you had lineups at that time. I mean, Destiny or Better Days or Cyrus. If there was a live PA happening, which would be a producer playing their own music, but not DJing it. I'm saying this just because I feel like it needs to be said. It's some people might be going like, what? So, but you would have live acts on a flyer with DJs, unless you were at a super party like a WEMP, or a big, obviously a big Destiny party. You really wouldn't see this type of thing happening at a club or a small club with a stage, say like the El Macombo, right? Which I've always loved that venue. I'm not quite sure what the fuck is going on with it right now. It looks like it's gotten some type of
Millionaires Club.
Plastic. Yeah, it's a plastic surgery joint now or something.
Yeah, it's Millionaires Club.
Is it? I mean, like, yeah, great. I mean, they built, go somewhere too, but
$1 million studio in there, and
I'm sorry, what?
Yeah, and they were planning on doing some huge things, and then COVID hit. Yeah, the guy from Dragon's Den, I forget his name, bought it, and totally redid it. He made it into like, it's got I think 2 recording studios. It's got broadcast capabilities.
What?
Like, it completely redid the club.
Cool.
But then COVID hit, and
right.
Anyways, let me tell the story of how we got from the live thing, because that's what you've been asking.
Yeah. Listen, because I mean, it's curious. If you know I'm obviously interested in the technical aspect of it, the way it would work mechanically, because this is 2 different rigs, different sound happening. So I mean, I'm assuming you had a live sound guy. Were there different boards that you guys had? Was there a switch? Like what the fuck happened?
Let me step back for 1 second, just before we go there, because I want to say how we got to that. Okay, if it makes sense, and it'll make sense in a second. So originally, I said it was me, Tim, and Larry. Larry, like I said, he was a behind-the-scenes guy. He didn't really want to be involved. He dropped out after the first party. Me and Tim threw a couple more parties, and I was the guy who was going to all the stores, and putting the flyers on Queen Street, on Yonge Street, on College Street, because at that time there was there was a flyer culture, and people knew to go to certain stores to pick up. We would hit all the record stores. We would hit the clothing stores. We would hit some of the art stores, fashion stores. We would hit the I'm trying to think, all the nightclubs in the area and bars had little flyer areas in the front window where you could put your flyers. And so we had a list of about 200 shops that we would use to advertise the parties. So while I was doing that one day, I don't know if you remember Cloud 9 on Queen Street. It's Queen and Bathurst, just on the or Queen, maybe it was Queen and Spadina, I can't remember, but it was basically upstairs. There was Fandom Paradise, which is where you go to get all your bootleg tapes. There was a whole bunch of, like, a tattoo shop, I think, was in there.
I think I remember this.
Bong shop. There was like a.
But anyways.
Yeah, this is way back. Anyways,
retail rave.
So me and Jay, I went into this place and I was putting out flyers, and then all of a sudden I ran into Jay Cleary. He was my partner in crime for the last 17 years, my partner for Make It Funky, the guy that is really my other half for making these things happen. If I could compare, I would say he'd be the Jesse to Ryan in Destiny.
Okay.
It would be the easiest way to say it. He was there promoting. He was bringing Fela Kuti to Toronto.
Fela
Kuti. Yeah. And so I was in the shop and I was like, "Oh, hey, what are you promoting?" He was like, "Hey, what are you promoting?" I showed him what I was doing. He showed me what he was doing, and I was like, "Oh, you're doing live events. I love live events." And he's like, "Oh, you're doing rave. I've never really done anything like that." And we were like, "Well, what would happen if we put the two together?" And it was literally a random meeting that made this happen. And we were like, what if we put the two together? How will we do it? So in the past, the traditional thing would be that if you're going to have a DJ, they're opening for the band. But we thought about it and we were like, you know what? The band crowd comes out from like 8 till 10:30 p.m. The DJ crowd.
It's a way different thing. The concert experience is done. Then it's after party is.
You got it. So
right.
The DJ experience didn't really start till 11 anyway.
Right.
So we were like, why don't we get a double audience? But what ended up happening was the audience over time like a few people would stick around. They'd say, oh, you know, you should check out this DJ after the band. And the DJ people started going, oh my God, there's a 10-piece live band. And it's on the same, I've already paid for a ticket. I might as well go check it out. So people started coming for the whole event, whereas we were anticipating that there'd be two crowds. And you'd be amazed at the synergy between the rave crowd and the live crowd. There's a real, I mean, we're not talking your Rolling Stones live crowd. We're talking like, you know, your 20 to 25-year-old partiers who just want to go and have fun. And so we were doing bands like King Sunshine, like live disco house, God Made Me Funky, the Word People, Soul Jazz Orchestra. I mean, all these bands that were local to Toronto, but just had massive funk to them, massive appeal, and totally fit the vibe that we were doing. But we flipped the script, because now the DJs were playing after, and we had headlining DJs coming and playing after live bands.
I imagine the logistics was probably pretty challenging when you were trying to book sound.
It depended on the venue. It was always venue dependent. And that's another thing about Make It Funky is people always say, oh, well, where do you throw your parties? And I always had a real hard time answering that question, because we were never loyal to a single venue. We used every single venue in the city. We played at the El Macombo. We played at, we actually shut down multiple venues in the city. We played the last show ever at 360, our first show. It turned out that, and this is kind of a crazy story, but it turned out that the Legion owned the 360. And it turned out that there was a Nazi event being held by these punks every Wednesday. And the Legion found out and said, we're shutting it down. And they shut down the 360 right after our party.
Good. Fuck Nazis.
Exactly. Fuck
Um,
Nazis. But then we shut down Crystal Room. we did an event with All Good Funk Alive. The next day they shut down. We were like, we thought we were cursed because we had multiple gigs booked at these venues at the time. This was right in the beginning. We shut down Fez Boutique. We had the very last show at Fez Boutique. It was Johnny versus Czech versus Big League Chew, Legends of Funk, and Edwin from I Mother Earth was
I'd
the
go to
bar.
that party tonight, man. I'd go
Yeah,
to that party tonight.
exactly. And I Mother the guy from I Mother Earth, the lead singer Edwin, was the bartender. We sold the bar out of booze, and the next day they announced that it was going to become a homeless shelter.
Wow.
Like, it was just, we've had some really crazy experiences with venues. We've used the government, we've used the docks, we've used Revival, El Macombo, the Mod Club.
I like Revival. I think this is a great venue in the
Yeah,
city.
Revival. We had a long stay with Revival.
Great venue.
Yeah.
And that was a great one to incorporate the live acts. Tiny stage, which was always challenging, especially because our bands were not 3-piece bands or 4-piece bands. They were always 8 to 12 piece, because you've got full horn sections and you've got, like it was always a challenge. Basically, we were moving the decks. But the thing is, once the bands were done, we just cleared them right to the sides, and the DJ would start playing. We'd have our warm-up DJ start playing, and then we'd literally be moving the decks forward as they're playing. Once, but the key was to make it seamless, so there was no break in the night.
I'm assuming that everything was, you're looking at stages in a modular fashion. It was never a static setup. Everything was how could it move around and where could it go.
100%.
Wild. I mean, you're literally doing Jenga during the course of your show.
Yeah, and it was funny because it was me, Mikey D, and Jay, and we were like, oh, okay, who's going to be on stage when they finish to move the decks?
Did it ever go?
Who's going to help them?
Did it ever go wrong? Did it ever happen? Someone pulled the wrong cord, the wrong cable, a power, something?
I gotta be honest, we all had great sound techs. We always worked with amazing sound techs. Vince from Revival, one of the best sound techs I've ever worked with. The guy is just Vince Ailey.
Right.
And he just knows this. He knows the thing is, in Toronto, when you have these guys who've been with the venues for so long, they know the venue. They know the sound in the venue. They know how things operate. And I mean, I think our biggest problem, our biggest challenge, if there was any, was monitors. Because band monitors were always different than the DJ monitors. The bands always had wedges that aimed up at them, and the DJs always wanted ear level monitors. So we were taking wedges and putting them on cones after.
Wow. It's definitely one of those things that's tricky at gigs. It's and definitely something that could be talked about in between 95 and maybe even 2005. There was 10 years where monitors were one of those things you weren't sure what you were stepping up to sometimes. If you get the booking, it'd be a new venue, it'd be like, is it going to be okay? I really want it to be okay. I'll brag a little bit right now and tell the story that, I mean, it's not my venue, so it's not really bragging. I'm bragging that I was able to be there and I got to do it. And that's the bragging, is that I was put on an airplane to go play in Seoul, and I played at a venue called Volume. They had a full function one sound system on the floor, and then they had a full function one sound system inside the DJ booth.
Nice.
Yeah. Bri, this was, I'm talking like, because I was confused when I walked in. I was confused. I was like, I don't. They were like, yeah, like full system right in the booth. I was just like, oh my fuck. Like, dude's like, go ahead and let the monitors rip. I was like, okay. So
Sorry,
I do.
I don't know if you remember.
What am I looking at here?
This was El Macombo. I'm not sure what year.
I played for you?
Oh, you played for us a bunch of times.
I did?
Yep.
Us? No.
I have multiple flyers with you on it. I'm looking. There's one really good one.
Hold on.
No.
I don't want to ruin it until I.
Apparently, yes. No. Apparently, the answer is yes. I can keep saying no, but like the answer is yes. The answer is yes.
So, but when
My
we were,
memory is now.
that one was you versus Rob G at the upstairs of the El Macombo. 700 people packed into the El Macombo. It was.
I remember this party.
Yeah, and I think that's where that famous picture of Rob G screaming came from. But I'm looking for another one. I know I have it here, and it's such an awesome pic if I can find it. Oh man, I'm sure I pulled it out.
Wow, the memory lane is super nuts on it. I had no idea. It was one of those things. I was gonna bring it up. Be like one of the few promoters in the city that I don't think that I've had the opportunity to hang out with and jam your floors.
I'll give you. Oh, here it is. I found it.
Oh fuck!
Opera House.
That was your party?
That was my party.
Huh.
That was myself and Activate.
Right. Okay. Well, that's
together on it.
All right. I was always behind the scenes on Activate. I was never really at the forefront. It was mostly like let me play and then Cy and Eva be like, yeah.
Yeah, no, that was Big League Chew, Dave Sadler, Rob G, you, and Ticozy.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember, I think it was you, Ticozy, and Rob G went back to back to back.
Yeah, it was our threesome on stage there. We each had our own mixers and our own decks, and I remember the show at the Elmo with Rob. I remember this show now. I had a Death from Above 1979 T-shirt at that show. It was a black T-shirt with two dudes kind of back to back with elephant noses coming out.
Yeah, I mean
that's right. Am I right about the show? I remember this. I remember this. But and then the other show, that show, I had fun. I remember I had a good time. I remember feeling challenged at that Party of Five show because we talked about getting together and doing a form of like not rehearsal, but at least just a jam to vibe with each other in that fashion because we'd not tried it before. And then there was some stuff that didn't work, and our monitors were not. They're just. It was a strange monitor situation. So I don't believe that our mixing was super amazing that night. At least mine wasn't. How about that?
I'm a purveyor of improvisation, so I'm okay when things go wrong because it means that you're trying to make something happen that could be magical.
I like this. Very good. Very good. Listen, sometimes you want it to go right and it doesn't, and I think maybe that's one of the whimsical, cosmic, awesome actions with live music. It's maybe one of the reasons why I just moments ago I said rehearsal, and if you rehearse something and then try and replicate the rehearsal exactly, like to make it perfect, this isn't really a live show. It's the music's happening right now. I don't know how to phrase that. It's a current show.
It's improvising. It's
improvising. I mean, I'm assuming this is maybe one of the things you probably loved with jam bands, Fish, Grateful Dead.
Sure.
What I know that I'm not super familiar with Fish tracks. Obviously, like I said, I did a small crash course in the car on the way over to the concert. This is
the
not exactly right.
That it goes. Let's say, I mean, I could see them play the same song on 3 different nights. The first version,
right, and it won't be the same thing.
The version's 25 minutes, and the third version is 7 minutes. And
right,
it's always different.
Because I've been confused over the idea of a concert, and here's what it is, and I know that in the comments right now someone might come at me and say something, which is great because I'm up for debate, not argument, but debate. Let's go. And so the idea that I'm showing up to a concert that's very well rehearsed, the lights are choreographed, the dance moves, there's a schedule, the set list. This has always been. As soon as I discovered this about concerts, I feel like a part of my heart broke because I thought to myself, like, y'all did the album, it's your album, so like now's an opportunity to be like out the window. Like on the album it's heavy metal, so here we're going to give you the acoustic version, or on the album it's acoustic, so tonight let's go
change it up, do something different. Yeah, make it an experience.
Right, because otherwise I'm seeing something that's very rehearsed and very choreographed and to the T. And if that's the case, well then this is a lot like a movie. You know, like I don't know, an action sequence. They spend 2-3 days filming just this one fight scene. Everything's very perfect, so that by the time I get the product, the movie, if you will, everything's firing it the way it's supposed to, and it's all happening in this wonderful fashion. Well, this is what was happening as what I discovered with concerts, because I saw the band in Toronto. I'm not saying what it is because I don't want to throw people under a rug, and I'm being generalized because it didn't happen with just one band. And then I saw the show in Toronto, and then I went to Hamilton, and then I went to London, and I went, what the fuck? I just paid for 3 tickets because I love this band, and you just gave me the same show three nights in a row.
And
Literally,
those are
almost
bands I
like,
avoided like the plague.
how are we all doing tonight? Literally at the exact same moment, and I'm just going, ew.
Yeah.
Like,
Those are the
because
bands I avoided like the plague.
right. Well, it took a
To
sec
relate it
for me
back
to
to the
come.
DJ thing, if let's put it this way, when I started going into breaks, we would hear the same tracks every night. But the thing that was cool about it and kept you coming back is that they're always mixed differently. They're always, the same 2 tracks are not always married. It wasn't like you're getting the same experience every time you go and see that DJ. Plus the fact that DJ probably has, thousands of records or whatever at the time, and they're pulling 40 to play you that night. So they're making a guided selection that's going to intrigue the crowd and keep them coming back. But they're still throwing in those hits, per se, that the crowd loves, knows, understands, and just goes off to.
Do you think that the break scene in Toronto might have been perhaps more present and popular today had a lot of the DJs back then if they were making their own music?
I think it would have been a bigger thing on the global scene. Because I think that's how we found, because producers was how we found out about artists everywhere else.
Right.
So the fact that Toronto DJs weren't producing, I mean, and that's not true at all. Many were.
Okay, I was about to say, I feel this is it's an interesting thing. I've brought this up on past episodes of the show. I feel like both drum and bass and breakbeats in Toronto had really big moments. And in both instances, in both scenes, it seems like the DJs and the producers were operating their own record labels, were putting out music. Toronto had are you frozen right now?
Nope, I'm here.
I hear you, but
I'm good.
the videos.
Yeah, it looks. It's showing on my
that you're moving around. That you're moving around.
It's showing fine here. Yeah, I don't know. I'm moving around. You can't see me moving.
No, I can't see you. You froze all the time. You look super handsome. It's okay. So I can't remember where I left off. I'll say this. I do know that there was music that was coming out of Toronto. There was a variety of different breaks things that happening. Obviously, the biggest that I could think obviously was Two Wars, and Two Wars wasn't necessarily exclusively breaks. I mean, or maybe they weren't just with me. And Scissor Kicks did some 4/4 stuff as well. I'm sorry.
I have records.
Okay.
I have my Two Wars still.
Right. There was some real darling moments with that label, and they were distributed at that time. I know the company's no more, Koch Distribution, which was a Canadian distributor for WWF, or what was WWF at that time. All of this was going on simultaneously, and then it just stopped.
Yeah.
And I've been having this conversation. It's almost like it could be a book, a coffee table book. Like, what happened to breaks in Toronto?
Well, I think the difference between Toronto breaks producers and global breaks producers that were coming to Toronto as headliners is that Toronto DJs were DJs first and producers second. Whereas the acts that were coming to Toronto as headliners were producers first, touring on the music they've made and the popularity they've gained from it.
If we were to take away this category, the category of DJs who are equally known for their technical abilities on the mixer and tables or any other hardware format as they are for the music that they are either making or selecting. If we take away this category and we only talk about DJs who are mixing, how relevant is that in 2021 and beyond?
I think it's really relevant. I mean, I'm one of them.
Okay,
I
so
hope
so
it's
can I ask you this then, Farbs? What's the difference between a DJ and a playlist? Again, removing that category of someone who is up on 4 decks and
So
mixing on a fifth, or sorry, scratching on a fifth, and then has a machine unit in front of them and they're drumming away. Let's take these people out of the equation, okay? Let's talk about just people who are mixing.
selection.
So again,
It's
a playlist.
knowledge of it's about knowing what's going to set a crowd off, how to feel a vibe, how to understand. And we're talking live, right?
Yes, of course.
Because there's two elements here. Because I've now transformed what we're doing with Making Funky into the Funk Raiders thing, which has just exponentially grown what I do and kind of grown that community around the world. We now have a worldwide community rather than just a Toronto community. But in Toronto as a live thing, I think what separates it is a DJ who just mixes has, I would hope, would have more knowledge than the people in the audience about the music that they're playing, about how they're going to select the tunes, what's going to change the vibe, how they're going to elevate the crowd, how they're going to de-elevate the crowd to be able to set something up for later. To be able to kind of plan how, but react in real time at the same time. When I'm playing, it's very, very rare that I would have something planned where I'd say, okay, this is my set. Even when I was on vinyl, I used to bring hockey bags of vinyl to gigs.
So this is known as reading the room.
Yeah.
So this reading is the main, what you would call one of the spotlighted or highlighted ingredients to the answer to my question.
I think it's a combination of reading the room and having the knowledge. I think the knowledge is key.
The knowledge comes based off of experience.
Experience, yeah.
But could it be taught?
Well,
Without
let me put
the
it this way.
experience,
I listened to a breakbeat record.
No, sorry, I don't want to.
I listened to a breakbeat record, and I hear 15 samples from live albums that I already know in my collection. And I'm thinking, okay, now I can bring that experience all at once to the room. And how am I going to jump to the next track? Where's it going to go from here? Do I want to bring it up? Do I want to bring it down? Am I looking for something that's like bassy, or do I want something that's going to be light or horny or horn-filled or like yeah, horny?
No, I'm getting it.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, of course.
Basically, just there's so many elements, and I think breaks is interesting because it doesn't fit the mold, which allows everyone to kind of like it. And I think that's something that always happened at parties, even in Toronto since the beginning, is you always had the side breaks room. So at every party you would go to, there would be the mass trance room, the mass house room, the mass techno room, whatever it was. But the breaks room is always there. And there's lots of people who will say to you, oh, I don't like techno. I don't like house. I don't like whatever.
Well, they can leave.
But very rare for people to say I couldn't have a good time at a breaks party. I don't see it very often. And I get a lot of feedback from people about that. Oh, I might not have come to all your parties, but when I go, they're some of the best parties I go to. It's just you're going to have a good time there.
We are in a time right now where if I wish to learn about something, it feels like there's a master class that's readily available by a master who's ready to teach me. But what you're talking about right now, this essential ingredient to DJing, my question to you is, I guess, what is the idea? What is a DJ in 2021 when there's so many different playlists that have been curated either by DJs or tastemakers or influencers, with what they believe is the best music of this idea, surrounded by the idea, a playlist about beach balls and everything's a beach ball. So there is no masterclass for the soul.
No,
I can't
there
go
is
to
no
a website right now and download a package to teach me on how to read a room.
Yep. But more than that,
why is this
you're
missing?
all
Why is this ingredient missing? There's so much focus and attention on the technical aspect, on how to go ahead and get this idea transferred. But there's absolutely no transference that I'm aware of. And fuck it, prove me wrong. I want to get in that comment and show me a link on how to read a room. And this isn't just
yeah.
about
No,
DJing. This is all music stuff, because I
you
find
have to
that this...
walk the room. You have to see what the people are doing, how they're reacting. Are they smiling? Are they wallflowers? You know. But at the same time, I also think that the other point that was missing from what we just talked about is that a DJ mixing records is telling a story, and in order to tell the story, you have to progress the story. So, I mean, in my sets, one of the things I typically do is I'll start at a very low BPM and just drive it up all the way through my set, or I'll start at a really high tempo, bring it right back down to I would even go up to drum and bass, drop it right back down to 90 BPM, 100 BPM, and then build it up to the 130s again to finish my set. So you're creating a vibe, you're telling a story through the songs that you're picking. For me particular, I mean, I've always focused on vocal tracks. So intermixing vocal tracks to be able to get, one sample to drop right at the perfect spot where there's a hole in the other song, so that it fits perfectly and there's no break in the track, but people go, oh wow, that was cool, that dropped right where it was supposed to. And it eventually it tells a story. I'll play certain songs in a row that I know will evolve the story. I'm trying to think. I can't think of one off the top of my head, but really, it is about telling that story.
I fucking agree with you wholeheartedly. It's essential. It's essential. Otherwise, I'm just listening to a bunch of tracks. And one of the things that
There we go.
one of the things that I've been frustrated. Do you lose me?
No, I got you now.
Are we good?
We're good now. I hear you.
Yeah. Okay. I was gonna say, one of the things that frustrated me, that I've noticed, it seems like it started, I don't know, 2013, 2014. I felt like there was a big emphasis on go, 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 go. And look, I mean, who the fuck am I?
No, I don't agree with you.
I know I'm go guy. But even during go moments, you gotta give a sec on figuring, and this is the challenge, how to keep it going without being exhaustive.
Yeah, I agree.
This, by my observations, was not happening in those years I cited. That was not happening at festivals. It felt like the emphasis was just fucking go. And so after the third hour of going, it's like I felt like I was being exhausted.
Sure.
And
yeah, it's almost being unfair to the audience.
so this is a very interesting thing that you just brought up. It's part of something else. I think I'm going to touch that with you, because I've got an opinion about that. Not having the break, not giving the audience to the moment to take a breath and catch it. Essentially, that moment for the dance floor to stop and smell the roses. And maybe this was one of the benefits of really old music. Old music, electronic music specifically. And I say old, really old, like 30 years. Like, my God, this is forever ago. If someone's like 20 right now, they're like, well, fuck, it was. And they're not wrong. But maybe, I don't know. Anyways, the thing is that tracks were like, I don't know, 7, 9, 10 minutes long. And I just trolled on the idea on my Twitter, I think yesterday, the day before. Like techno records were really like 9, 10 minutes long of a loop.
Yeah.
Someone was like, great loop. Let's hear this
One of the
let's
things
hear
I
it for
still
9 minutes.
is that I mean, compared to the music that's coming out today, now you'll get like, because of electronic devices like Serato and whatnot, you'll get a 20-second sample at the, or 20-second loop at the beginning, a 20-second loop at the end, and you've got to mix it. Whereas with records, you had 5 minutes before you.
I'm good with that. I'm good with what you just said. But what the thing is, I guess, that I'm trying to say, and I'm long-winded, so it makes me a bit of a goof right now. But the thing that I'm trying to say is that there was a moment of patience.
Yeah.
And it was a moment of patience being given by the performer, and there was a moment of patience being accepted by the person on the dance floor.
Sure.
And this was a relationship.
I agree.
And this relationship was pre-established. You knew that these moments were going to happen. And the promoter, especially if it was a one-room event, trance DJ starting into a house DJ, into a jungle DJ, into a breaks DJ, back into a house DJ. Now we're going to go do some hardcore because fuck it, let's go with some Rotterdam. All right, we're going to bring it back down here, some funky stuff. And then maybe in the morning, some really uplifting house music, some progressive house. And that's the party. And be like, I just heard everything.
Sure.
I'm going home. And like the conversations would happen at the after party. Do you remember at 2:00 when this happened? Yeah, but in the morning when it really got really like, euphoric and more, this conversation happened. Then you go to the festival, be like, yeah, I fucking raged. Then what? Fucking raged again.
Yeah, no,
okay.
It was the way.
Listen, that's for 3 hours.
Yeah.
Oh, let's go. But then what? Then what? Be like, well, then walk away and go sit down. Be like, well, okay, cool, but I still want to listen to music. I don't want to sit down and be go. Like, where's the moment? Where's the programming on this? And it felt like, and I'm going to speak, I got firsthand experience on this. The booking agents for a lot of these festivals are like, this is just line up to stack a bunch of superstars and it's all go time, and they don't care. So what did you just say before when you were talking about it? You were talking about the audience being cheated.
Oh, I just said it's unfair to not have that break for them to be able.
It's cheating the audience. It's cheating the audience from the whole experience. And I wonder about this, and now I'm going to say it, I've got the opinion. The very idea that we're buying tickets on Ticketmaster to go to this stuff is fucking wrong.
Sure.
That's all there is to it. And knowing what venue I'm going to before I get to, that's just not very exciting. It's just not.
Different. It's different.
It kills a big part of the adventure. I'm not saying that the party shouldn't be at the Elma Combo.
Sure.
But maybe you don't find out where the fuck it is until you're actually walking into the Elma Combo. And then you're like, oh my God, it's at the Elma Combo. I didn't know it'd be there. At least it'd be something instead of at the Elma Combo, Ticketmaster, and here's a Ticketmaster surcharge, and fuck you, and I'll see you there. It's like, what the fuck just happened?
I can think about it from, I understand completely where you're going with that. And my tort to that is that as a promoter as well as a DJ, from the promoter side, in 2005 to now, that culture just doesn't exist anymore. It's so hard
to connect. I'm going
to
jump in. There are performers right now that, well, maybe not right now, but pre-pandemic, that were insisting upon leaving your phones at home, for example. Just one thing.
I'm all for that.
Okay.
I'm all for that. I hate phones on the dance floor. I think it's the worst thing that ever happened to evolution.
I have a like-dislike.
I mean, I love the fact that
I see why, and
I hate that people have pictures of other people's phones.
Well, there is something interesting about people who are just watching the concert through an inches big screen when you can just put your phone down and 3D is 3D and there and current and all that great stuff.
It takes away from the interaction of people. Right. But yeah, I mean, I think that from a promoter perspective, the reason that we couldn't hide the element of where it was is because the venues would get mad at us for it. The people wouldn't necessarily buy in. There was a lot of people in Toronto who wouldn't go to a place if they didn't know what venue it was. There was a lot of, we found that we would go to certain venues and 50 people would show up. We'd go to another one and 500 people would show up.
Right.
And it was specifically because of the venue. We have a lot, I mean, I don't mean to diss anyone, but we had a lot of venue snobs in Ontario.
Mm-hmm.
I would say probably 40% of our audience came from outside of Ontario.
Right.
Or not outside of Ontario, sorry, outside of Toronto. and drove in. I can't tell you how many people came from London, Oshawa, Waterloo, even Windsor. We had tons of people coming down every single show. I got to know them, and they would be there like clockwork. And I would be like, you just drove three hours plus to come here. You're going to party, and then you're either going to drive 3 hours back, or you're going to stay in a hotel. So you're paying huge expenses to do this. So there's got to be a passion and a love for it, and there's got to be something delivered at the event for people to keep coming back.
You know, I think that there's a variety of obstacles that so many promoters face, and my hats are, the proverbial hat is off to club owners that have to create new experiences in a static room week after week and keep that exciting. And for some, definitely able to pull it off, and then obviously not so much. And when we're faced with these challenges, we've got choices. You know, one is to try and work around it, and the other way is to be like, say, fuck it. And you know what? My personal beliefs, obviously, you can see where my energy's at right now. I've been spending the last year talking to DJs and promoters that are still either working right now, or people who used to be involved and have made either lateral moves or just moved on. And it seems like one of the biggest themes that I keep touching upon was the sense of adventure that was associative with the next day's storytelling that people were sharing with family, friends, and strangers about what they did last night. And
Sure.
and it, you know, we won't be sure unless I or you or somebody else does this, where they actually go and they get it together. And this, you need a great team, which is, I imagine, to be one of the, maybe the biggest challenges in 2021 and beyond, would be to have a great team and have everybody stay spoiler free until that minute. Until that minute happens. And you know,
hard.
pardon me?
It's hard.
Sure it
I
is,
think
of
what's
course.
harder is
Everyone's very excited about the night, the party, but, you know, the energy.
Yeah. But I think the hardest part is getting the buy-in from the audience. When you're keeping everything a secret, even if it's amazing,
I mean,
you have to get the buy-in, because there's so many events that people can go to. There's so many options. And when people, I mean, in Toronto in those times, there was never a time where there wasn't 3 parties going on in a night.
I understand
On a
what you're
Friday
saying.
or
Listen, there's a strong probability that a lot of the people who were going out at that time became disassociative or just didn't want to fucking go out anymore, because all of a sudden the club people who were in the clubs were now on the dance floors. Now,
Sure.
tell me I'm wrong, but one of the
That
better
was never
things,
experience, because we didn't really have those people. That's the thing.
one of the better things that I think one of the
because
better
we
things
had
that
that mix
happened.
with the live crowd and the DJ crowd, but the DJ crowd was all these breaks kids who totally got along with the jam band kids that came out for these disco house acts and funk acts.
The vibe was a crossover.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So you'd know that if you looked over at somebody that you were dancing next to, that somehow it was a degree of separation into what you were doing. Man, I'm sometimes on the dance floor, and I'm talking about then. I think that a big thing was having music that was ours, and that we knew that when we were at that place, we would be in these rooms with other people who felt the same way as us.
Yeah.
And I wasn't in some nightclub with
Yeah,
somebody who was very interested in
are like-minded.
very interested in the party, but perhaps not so interested in the culture or the music or what you were talking about before, which was the community and being a part of it. It was just good enough to be there. And here's me. What am I? I'm not the emperor and saying who should be on a dance floor and who shouldn't be on a dance floor. But I know one thing's for sure, is that I wouldn't want to go into a place. This is me personally. I'm just speaking about myself. Say, for example, a Grateful Dead show where I'm completely unfamiliar with the music and not knowing what's going on, and want to stand in the middle of the dance floor and just be like, oh, I don't know what this is. I don't know if I like it or not. I mean, like,
I think you'd be surprised, because you wouldn't have time to take that position.
Okay. I'm just,
there's just so much going on. Like, there's people who go to Dead shows and they don't even go to the show; they just hang out in the parking lot.
Right. No, I know about some of the culture, and I know that the tailgate stuff that happened for both Dead and Fish are legendary.
Definitely an animal of their own, for sure.
Right. You know what? I guess here I am. I'm sharing a bunch of feelings with you. I wonder. There's only one way to find out for sure what's right and what might not work or what would work. But I don't know if 10,000 people. I don't know if 5,000. Hell, I don't even know if 2,000 people would commit to this. But below that number, I would I would wager yes. I would say that the idea of a surprise, a venue that you don't know where you're going up until the last minute, especially if you're getting on a blacked out window school bus that was taking you somewhere and you were told that you weren't allowed to have phone. And of course, someone would sneak it in and someone would want to break the rules and be like, ooh, I'm being bad tonight. I know where it is, and get on Twitter and bust up the whole thing. But maybe not. Maybe not. Maybe people would commit to the adventure. And I'm not talking about it in a nostalgic sense. I think actually right now in 2021, this is the opposite of what's so familiar. And this is what I guess what I was trying to say to you before is that when we were all going out, when we first started going out, a great deal of awesomeness that was coming at us was not knowing where we were going to be, not knowing what the music was, even if you had a familiarity with the performer, not being certain of what the music was going to be. There was a whole bunch of mystery that was linked to the idea of heading out and being a part of it, that the mystery in itself became a bubble of energy. And this ingredient is missing. It's not here. Show prove again, get involved. Let me know. Show me because I want to know. And if I can see it and you're showing me something I don't know about, then I'm schooled up and I'll fucking see you on that dance floor. I'll be next to you and I'm there. I'm if you've rocked out with me, you know I want to fucking get down. So I just I miss it. I miss it. I miss the idea. Because otherwise, there's a whole lot of premeditation going towards it. And I'm not going to say that you can't have a good time there. You can. You can have it for sure. I've gone out partying at the same venue. I'm going. I'm going to go. Coda, open your doors. Let's go. I want to go. I want to go. I do. But I also want to go to the other thing. And I think it's really. I think it's really important. And it's not. It's not happening right now. And it's strange that it's just disappeared. I feel like everyone's become so reliant on the idea of technology and the way that things are supposed to be promoted that the notion of trying something and digressing or deviating or giving just that little bit of a difference is too scary and risk and not doing it. Very good. The city was the same size back in 1995. You had canvas stores who went around. Why the energy change? I said the city was the same size in 95. Okay. Would that work today? Would a free zine on the streets of Toronto work today? Well, no one's going anywhere right now. But I mean, no, Queen Street's an outdoor mall. There's absolutely nothing cool about Queen Street West anymore. I want to say, that closer to Dufferin and Queen is probably a lot cooler than Queen Spadina. Right. You're onto something. You brought this up before, how the record stores and when the record stores stopped, it definitely had a break in the community, and there was a lot of retail culture that did disappear for sure. That just right. Yeah, there was a congregation that happened, a weekly ceremony that didn't go anymore. Mhm. Fucking deep, Bry. You're definitely. You know what? I've probably said everything wrong during the show, and you're saying everything right. Yeah, I'm not a promoter. I'm in the basement. I bang my head, and you know. Yeah, for sure, for sure.
that I was a fan of.
Well, isn't that what promoters are? Promoters are the DJs of DJs.
Yes and no. There's a lot. I mean, how do I say that without being rude?
Make curating your own playlist
Yeah,
for the
well,
night.
I mean, how do I say this without kind of pissing off a lot of people? But I mean, I can't tell you how many people thought that every show we did, we were getting rich as promoters, and felt that, oh man, you guys are charging me $20, $30 to come into this venue. And look at all these people. Meanwhile, they don't realize that the headliner DJ takes 40% of the bill right off the top. Then we've got venue costs. Then we've got sound costs. Then we've got promotion costs. Then we've got door people costs. We've got people who are going to help out costs. Everybody had to get something. And we were a very community type promotion company, where that's why we called it the Make It Funky Collective, because we had a group of people who were all involved. And there were so many nights that I felt like shit at the end of the night. We threw an incredible party. Everybody had the best time ever. I've got a hole in my pocket so deep because I refused to not let everybody get something. And at the same time, I also want to say that there were nights where I felt terrible because I just didn't have any, I was going to the bank machine at the end of the night to take out money. It just happened, but it was a labor of love for me, right? And I love the music so passionately, and I love the community so passionately, and the people, that I just kept pushing, and said, you know what? It's okay if one party pays for the next 5. And I was okay with that. And nobody really knew it in the background. People just thought, oh man, he's getting rich. Look at how many people are coming to these parties. But the money's going out the door. It comes in and it goes out faster than it comes in. Just because you're paying all the support acts, you're paying the lighting, the sound guy. I mean, every time we hit a venue, it was $200 for the sound guy. It was $150 for security. It was $1,500 to $4,000, $5,000 for the main headliner DJ, depending on what it was. Every support act's getting $100 to $200. Your door person gets $100, whatever it is. You know what I mean? Like, everybody's taking a piece of the pie, and the pie just keeps getting smaller and smaller until eventually you got to make a second pie. And there's nothing to make the second pie except my bank account. I can't tell you. I mean, I don't want to say that. How do I say this? I lost money for a lot of years putting these shows on. And I never really said a word unless people complained. Then I actually got vocal a couple times on Tribe and stuff like that, where people were accusing me of walking away with the money.
But it was never a deterrent for you.
No, it wasn't about the money. I was a music guy. From my inception, I was a music guy. So I was more about.
Does this make us crazy a little bit, or
totally? But at the same time, I'm enjoying life. I'm getting.
Yeah. There's without a doubt. If my soundtrack all of a sudden disappeared one day, I don't know what the fuck I would
exactly. And I'll tell you a big influence on this, and you're gonna laugh because I watched your episode where you talked about it. Shambhala was the biggest influence on me of anything that I ever did. Okay, and
you know what, Bri? I would honestly, genuinely, I would love to go back.
You should. I heard your experience, and I know what your experiences was because I know the hotel you stayed at out of town. I know that it's just like a brown building with 4 doors, and you got your room, and you're there. You're stuck there. There's nothing there.
It was a 45-minute walk to a convenience store, or it wasn't even that. It was a gas station.
Right on.
And it was at the side of a highway. It's not like it would be like a nice. There's no sidewalk. You know, logging trucks are flying by you at 120 kilometers an hour. It's the opposite.
You went at the foundations. You went when
I was.
I think
it's either 2001 or 2002. I was someone that was performing for them, and I mean, listen. I would go back. Mostly, I don't think it's the same person that's involved that's doing it, or maybe that person.
They're all involved. 20 plus years later, they're all involved.
So I don't know who this person is, but I got to tell you, man, that was easily the strangest thing that's happened to me at a show. I mean, I'm not going to tell the story again.
No,
I heard the story. Go check out the past.
I know exactly what you're talking about because I know the places and I've been there.
Car chase.
But what I was going to say is
car chase in the forest.
Yeah, that's weird.
Like I'm trying to say it to people. I've told this story before, and some people are like, "Bullshit," and I'm like, "Hold on for a second." I'm like, I'm not even no prompt, nothing. I'm just gonna put the person on speakerphone because I had Ryan Condrat with me right now, right from Grayson and Signal, who's like prominent music producer right here in Canada. Was there. It was part of it. Like it was in the car with me during the car chase. Like it fucking
Colin
happened.
With you? Colin Big League Shoe?
No, demonic.
Okay. Because I remember when Big Sean went, and he told me that he would never go back because he went in those foundations.
And the irony is, I want to go back just to because I don't know if the dude was having a bad day or what it was. I'm not quite. I know what it was. Dude, you're watching. Call me. Tell me. I'm okay to make this right.
In those days, it was kids trying to have a party. They have an amazing, incredible piece of land. And they didn't know what to do with it, but they wanted to evolve something, but the idea wasn't formed. And so it became utter chaos. And everybody I've ever spoken to who went there in those years says the same thing. But
I've had 3 alternative experiences out in British Columbia, and the car chase at Shambhala. But I mean, like I got sorted, so it worked out. But still, fucking car chase. There was another promoter that had an excellent time on their own, and then were removed from the venue at the beginning of the party and was not allowed back in. And of course, wouldn't you know it, I was playing while this was happening. I got off the decks and was like, let's figure everything out, and that didn't happen. But the irony is, like 5 or 6 years later, dude came to a show I was doing on the island and sorted it out, and which was amazing. And the same thing as well. There was another situation where I did something and didn't get sorted, and then like years later got a phone call from that promoter and made it right. So in all the instances, it all worked out. But I've had some, like, I think one of the things about early 2000s was that so much of this was fly by night.
Yeah, absolutely.
Um,
It was let's throw everything at the wall, see what sticks,
and see what sticks.
But I think what you missed out on is the fact that they actually learned from the mistakes they made when you went.
I'm assuming. I mean, it's massive
But
now, right? They're getting 15 or 20,000 people at their party.
Small town DJs. They took me out there my first year, and it was
Right.
me, Czech, Pete from Small Town, and Steve from Fort Knox 5. The four of us drove up from Calgary. I flew to Calgary. We hung out at the Hi-Fi Club, and then the next night we drove up to Shambhala. And we had a crew of about 50 people that were camping in a certain area. We were all part of the Fractal Forest family. Like, all the biggest acts that I could ever want to see were all there. You had Crafty Cuts, A Skills, I don't know if A Skills was there at that point, but Stanton Warriors, Freestylers, Plump DJs, all these incredible acts, all in one place at the same time, sharing a vibe. Z-Trip, Newmark over the years. I actually introduced Z-Trip to Shambhala when he came to play for me. I told him, you got to be at this festival, and he had such a great time playing for us. He was like, okay, I trust you. I'm going to seek this out. And I think it was Sarah and Mike from the village who sought him out, and they got him on board. And I mean, how can I put it? I'm trying to explain it in a way that, okay, here's a good way I can explain it. Beardy Man. He played 60 festivals over the course of one summer. I toured with him for about a week in Canada. We did Evolve Festival, went to Hillside with him, Toronto show, and then there were some Western shows. So then on our way to Shambhala, I'm like, you don't even understand what you're getting into. This is the best festival in the world. And he said, dude, I literally just came back from playing in the mountains of Japan. I literally was at Glastonbury playing in front of a giant fire-breathing robot. And you're telling me that this little piddly festival in the middle of the mountains is the best festival in the world. By day 2, he turned to me and he said, Farbs, you're right. This is the best festival in the world. And the reason for that, I'll give you an example. Now they have the hotel. So for the big artists, there's 2 hotels. There's the real hotel where you stayed, but there's also the on-site hotel. And the on-site hotel is not really a hotel. It's just an area that's in the shade where they set up tents for the artists. They give you a nice blow-up mattress, a blanket, a pillow, and they give you a bag of toiletries. And every morning there's smoothies and fruit served. Every afternoon they have happy hour.
Fuck, wish you would have put me there.
That's what I'm saying. Like this, it just became, over time, it became a different festival, and it respected the artists and it respected the community, and the community, because of that, kept coming back. Plus the fact that there's no booze there, except for happy hour for the artists. So because there's no booze, the assholes don't come. They're all like, oh, the guys who want to fight don't come. The guys who are just going to festivals to screw people over and do whatever they want to do. That, like, I can't tell you how many times I went to WEMF, and I'll give you a perfect example. I went to WEMF one year, and
I was sitting with Czech, and he was playing out of we were hanging out at the back of that truck, where they had a DJ booth set up in the truck, and Red Turtle was there, and the crew. Anyways, but some guy walked by, grabbed his record bag, and put it in his trunk of his car. Czech, within 2 seconds, grabbed a crowbar and said, "You better open it or I'm gonna." I mean, that doesn't happen well, I shouldn't say that. There are people who get robbed at Shambhala. There's 15,000 people. There's going to be an asshole. But at the same time, it's not the norm. Okay? You don't get the drunks. You don't get the people who want to fight. Everybody's on happy drugs. And then they also have sober spaces. They have like it's a very respectful festival in that sense. Mm. And I know you didn't have that experience, but it's incredibly well timed.
I'm not closed-minded. Like I said, I would give it another shot, and perhaps now with the evolution, it's
yeah. Now
super.
It's stages, and each stage.
Yeah, no, I mean, everyone I know that goes calls me up and is like, either when are you going and playing this thing, or like come with me, or just like something, you know. And I haven't been able to. Typically, when it's going on, it's August, and obviously past August, I'm sure. Not here. I'm elsewhere. I'm doing shows, but like I know Rob went out for a few years and was playing there.
I helped Rob get booked in the Fractal. So I do a lot of I do well. I call it consulting with Rich. We're friends and we talk about artists we like.
Right.
Rich is the guy who books the Fractal for us.
Well, maybe if I was under your umbrella, then maybe that experience might be the way. It might be the way. I don't think I'm going to have a car chase with Farbsie Funk. I on the show, I like to get. This is the hot seat. Are you ready?
Let's do it.
Okay. You've got 3 records, Farbs. 3 records that you know you love. They're either on your key, in your bag, your box. No matter what, they stick with you. They're either records that you go and you select that are going to totally rescue your floor from an oh shit moment, or it's your floor is just doing just fine, but you know it's going to elevate it even more. These are records that you love. You know, you swear by them. They never leave your side. What are these 3 records?
DJ Brownie, Like This.
Oh!
Is one. Feature Cast, Tutti Frutti, which is a drum and bass tune that is just bonkers. And a third. The Almighty Senators, Sweat. Do you know that tune?
I don't. The last 2 songs I don't know. The Brownie just did like crazy memory shit to me. Yeah.
Yeah, the Almighty Senators, Sweat is nothing brings us closer together than sweat.
It's a good mantra. If we want to go ahead and check out Farbsie Funk online and everything that's happening with Funk Raiders, what are we supposed to do and where are we supposed to go?
Funk Raiders is makeitfunky.ca. It'll take you to our Facebook page, which has all the info on Funk Raiders. Funk Raiders, just so everyone knows, is a total, well, it came about because of COVID. Everybody was like, oh my God, we're screwed. What the hell are we going to do? Can't throw events. Can't DJ. I was actually, interestingly enough, I had started DJing on Facebook previously. And I was probably, before COVID, I was doing sets for probably about 6 months to a year on Facebook. And I can't remember who it was, but somebody came to me and said, you should try Twitch because it's pretty good and you can monetize. So I decided, you know what, I'll give it a shot. I got on there and, you know, I'd get 10, 20 people, whatever it was. And then all of a sudden I'd start getting raids from people that I knew who I'd worked with in the community for years. That all of a sudden, and a raid, for people who don't know it, is where they take the crowd that's in their room when they're done their set and they move it to your room so they can introduce you to that crowd. And so Funk Raiders evolved from that. Basically,
We took 14 DJs around the world, and for me, it was like candy in a bowl. I got to book all my favorite DJs on one bill at one time, where we had a dedicated crowd of people who I was getting to know over time, because they'd be chatting in the chat, I'd be responding on the mic. There's a really different interaction from, and I don't think it's ever going to go away. Even when live events come back, I think this Twitch thing is here to stay.
I'm not ending utility. This is never mind. We're already booked. I'm blessed. We're booked into September.
Yeah, no. There's lots of DJs who will leave, but even the DJs like Crafty Cuts has said, or A Skills has said that, yeah, I've got my bookings. My bookings are always going to take priority. I always want to be in front of a crowd if I can. But every chance I get that I'm not in front of a crowd, I have an opportunity to connect with a global audience online, where it's a different interaction than being with a live audience, because a live audience doesn't give you feedback in real time. They don't tell you this song sucks. They don't tell you, wow, I am bouncing in my living room. They don't join Zoom rooms. We've tried to do all sorts of different things to interact with the crowd. Last night, for example, I've started a new. I play every Wednesday at 7:30 p.m. on Twitch on my channel, and last night I introduced a new concept where I'm buying now a ton of 45s, and I'll buy them in lots. So what'll happen is I don't know half the records, so I put them in a pile. And I say, okay, front, middle, back. And the audience chooses where I pull a record from. And then I'll play that record and I'll say, is this a keeper or are we tossing it? And I'll let the audience decide. And we'll interact back and forth about what we like about the track, what we don't like about the track. It's a completely different animal. And you get that feedback in real time that is there's a real connection. I've made more connections on Twitch in the last year around the world than I have in 20 years of promoting, which is crazy for me to say, because
it's a wild statement.
I know a lot of people, but I know a lot more people now. And I mean, I have for Funk Raiders, we have our residents. Like, we have a guy from Immaculate who's a video master. He makes he edits videos and to music. And he does it for all the artists, basically, for Crafty Cuts, for A Skills, for all those guys. They'll come to him and say, hey, can you make me some videos? Here's some new tunes. And then when they're on their feet, behind them.
That is a
the co-op. Immaculate. He's out in Redwood, California. We've got Aiden Scott in Philadelphia. We've got Jay here in Toronto. He plays Mr. Twista, who's an Owen Sound. Nobody knew who he was before this. These guys were bedroom DJs, but now they have huge followings because they've grown. We've grown with them. We all help each other, and it really is a community. Because with Twitch, you can't be an island. You just can't. You won't get exposure. Nobody's going to see your channel unless. Like, I'm every time I go on Twitch, I raid someone at the end of my set. That sends people to introduce to them. They start following them. Those people return the favor at some point. But the raid trains, so I think Funk Raiders is a little different than most of the raid trains you see on Twitch, because we really curate a sound. And we might have 14 breaks DJs, but none of them play the same breaks. One guy plays 45s one guy plays Serato. The next guy's playing records from his collection. The next guy's playing like playing house. I mean, it's all intermingled, but it's a connected crowd and community that drops in, and you're saying hi to the gang because everybody knows everybody. And if you don't know everybody, it's a welcoming community from day one. And people see that in the chat. They feel it in the chat. They feel the interaction. I mean, you can ask DJs questions. You can, and the DJs have to become multi-talented, because now we're not just DJs, we're video producers, we're technology purveyors, we're green screen creators, we're
We have to make up activities that are interesting to keep people motivated and interested and engaged. And at the same time,
Is it because the music isn't enough? Why is that?
It's not so much that the music isn't enough. The music is always enough, because the music, without the music hitting the point, the people wouldn't come. The music is the reason everyone comes, but the community is the reason everyone stays.
I've had a dynamite time with you tonight. I think that you have said some truly awesome stuff. Going back and listening to this episode and hearing what you've got to say has changed my perspective, and maybe for some people that are on screen with us as well, that they might feel the same way. I appreciate you. I appreciate your words, your thoughts, and sharing with us wonderful insight. With us tonight, you have been listening to all of the thoughts and love of Farbsie Funk. You've been with us here in the utility room. Totally awesome being with you tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me. I'd love to do this again anytime. We didn't even catch half of the stuff that I wanted to talk.
We can do a sequel. I feel like we're there, but we're also, I mean, like, I'm having such a great time with you. I didn't notice. Here I am, almost $1.50 in the hours, and like nothing. Hey,
if you're
like butter.
You're good to keep going. I'm good to keep going. But
welcome to the utility room, Farbsie Funk. Wild. Good, my hat came off.
I got nowhere to be. It's COVID. We're in lockdown. I can go upstairs.
Oh, I think that's maybe an exaggeration.
You know what I mean.
And I think about this sometimes. I've talked about it on the show. If you've seen some of the episodes, you may have heard me say it, because it's awesome to be in a place of, firstly, can't believe all you maniacs want to talk to me. That's wild, and I love it. And I feel like sometimes if we're here for too long, that the episode carries on, and then that the butt numbathon begins, or a thumb sprain. It's like after doing a thumb war for 10 minutes, you're like, all right, give me a sec.
I'm with you.
But yes,
really
I think that would be a great idea, is that we got to have you back, and that fuck it, let's get you DJing. I mean, like, it was good to talk to you and hear you from this angle, but maybe we should hear you from the other end.
Yeah, man, please come and see me. I play every Wednesday night on Twitch. 3 p.m. Eastern.
I meant you with us here, not you got your own thing.
Oh, you want me to play on Utility Room?
That's what I'm saying. I'm saying
Done.
Next time we heard this end of you. Let's get the other side.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I play every Funk Raiders, which is every second Saturday. I play every Wednesday, but the reality is I'm doing pop-ups. I'm playing 3 to 4 nights a week minimum.
You're a maniac. It's totally awesome.
And
I feel it.
Never
and
the
I
same.
appreciate it.
I mean,
I love it.
If I play 50 tunes, I'm playing 50 different tunes next time.
Oh yeah, it's the way. What else is the choice? We're here. I'm. You know what the good news is? I love our flow. I love our flow. So we're gonna talk again, and we're gonna get some music. Listen, you out there are the reason why all of this is happening.
Absolutely.
I love talking with all the guests, and I love that you guys are with us. So please like, comment, subscribe, rate, follow, share, fucking get involved. Thank you very much for being part of Utility Room. We'll see you Saturday night. We have crafty guts. My name is Jello. That's Farbsie. That's Farbsie Funk. This is Utility Room.
Big ups.